happen. We have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrop.
How's our alignment?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
Maybe I'll move a little this way.
All right. Well, you know, it's
Welcome back, Andy.
Thank you very much. It's a very hard week, and what we have to report is a cascade of grotesque and bigoted, destructive orders from Trump. But LGBTQ groups are fighting back.
So there are various categories of horror this week. One is that Trump is trying to bar transgender service members and gender-affirming care for minors.
Across the country.
Yeah.
He's also stripped protections from trans inmates.
And Marco Rubio, the new Secretary of State, has told his staff to suspend passport applications with an X gender marker.
And Trump illegally impounded trillions of dollars in federal funds, upending life-saving programs here and around the world.
But they're sort of saying never mind at the moment about
for God's
that.
sakes.
I know.
They did it. Trump
Pardons the insurrectionists, those who would accept the pardon, and frees them to be the stormtroopers he wants.
Trump took away federal security details from Dr. Anthony Fauci and other enemies of his.
Trump nominated an anti-gay activist to head the U.S. Global Communications, which includes the Voice of America.
And federally funded institutions, such as the National Gallery of Art, have caved to Trump's ban on diversity initiatives.
All in 1 week.
Right.
Out pansexual figure skater Amber Glenn has repeated as the U.S. singles champion.
You mean we're going to give them some good news? And same-sex weddings got underway in Thailand with a mass ceremony joined by the Prime Minister.
And we'll tell you the LGBTQ angles on the Oscar nominations. All of that good news in the last 3 minutes of the program.
Okay. All right.
Shall we start with the military?
If you like, sure.
Okay. Well, we have a new, of course, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who is a complete maniac and moron, but he's happy to do the work of President Trump, his overlord. And so Trump has laid the groundwork for dismissals of all trans service members. He hasn't pulled the trigger, so to speak, in the military quite yet, but all the groundwork is there.
So here's the situation. Cisgender men are obviously too scared to enlist in the military. That's why they're so far behind in their recruitment. So we'll expel all the brave transgender soldiers, maybe 15,000 of them.
Maybe the women, too. But here's their rationale. This is so disgusting. It just will make you want to throw up. They say that they have to throw out trans members, not just because, you know, they might require a little extra medical care, which they don't compared to everybody else, but because they are liars, because they have not accepted the truth that they are really their biological birth sex, and therefore they are unreliable, anti-American, treasonous people who cannot be counted on to be good patriots and therefore are going to be thrown out of the military.
To quote the president, a man's assertion that he is a woman and his requirement that others honor this falsehood is not consistent with the humility and selflessness required of a service member. I mean, it's grotesque. That's why I say the stuff is grotesque.
Let's talk about the humility and what was the other word?
Selflessness.
Selflessness of Pete Hegseth. Not to mention Donald Trump.
I was going to say.
It's grotesque is an understatement.
Well, I mean, Hegseth, he shows up the first morning for work at the Defense Department and immediately references Fort Moore and Fort Bragg, which are the old racist names named after Confederate generals of those places. And that, I believe, has to be changed by Congress. He can't do that unilaterally.
Andy, I'm sure I will say this more than once during this program, but these people have no regard for actual laws and rules, and they're just going right ahead and doing exactly what they want and daring people to stop them.
Well, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, but they are getting brushed back on some of these things by the courts.
Well, there are a lot. For instance, we had a wonderful guest here last week, Jennifer Levi of Gay and Lesbian Legal Advocates and Defenders in Boston, GLAD Law. She is a terrific lawyer who litigated these military issues for trans service members years ago. And we asked her about that. And Shannon Minter of National Center for Lesbian Rights, the two of them, both trans, are the lead lawyers on the lawsuit now against the Department of Defense on this expected expulsion of trans members. So I asked Jennifer, didn't we go through this? Didn't we litigate this before? Didn't we say it was okay for trans people to serve? And she said, actually, it went back and forth in the courts at various levels and ended up not being settled before Obama, I think, took office.
No, you mean
or Biden, whatever. And so it ended up being an executive order from a Democratic president that said trans people can serve in the military. And so actually, while it has been litigated before, it did not come to a full resolution in the courts, and that's why the Trump people can bring this up again.
All right. Now, out trans U.S. Navy Commander Emily Schilling, you may have seen her on television. She leads the group Sparta Pride for trans service members, Navy test pilot, 2 decades of service. She's one of the people contesting this, and she says, all I want to do is keep serving, and said that questioning her honor feels like a disservice for what I've done for this country. Of course, there is no country anymore at this point.
Yeah. Well, HRC and Lambda are also saying they're going to get in on a lawsuit for this. And meanwhile, the Air Force was told in the DEI realm to stop using training films on the Tuskegee Airmen and the WASPs, the women pilots. And that got turned around very quickly because even the Air Force said that's a bridge too far. But who's next? You know, they get rid of trans people. Are they going to throw women out because Hegseth doesn't think women should be serving? Will lesbian, gay, bisexual, non-binary people be thrown out because they don't conform to the ideal profile of who should be serving? And where will race end up being brought into this? And the service academies, for instance, including the Air Force Academy, notoriously Christian-based and white supremacy-based, are atheists going to be thrown? Is there going to be a religious test to serve in the military? It's just ludicrous.
And then know what they're doing to our kids. Yep. Trump issued a far-reaching executive order barring gender-affirming care for minors, using the power of saying, if you're a facility, which all hospitals are, that gets Medicaid and Medicare, you can't do this anymore. This means it will be banned not just in the red states where they're doing this, but across the entire country. It's titled Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation. That's the title of that one.
And Lambda is going to file suit on that. I'm sure others will join in. The U.S. House of Representatives quietly passed a bill that forbids Medicaid from covering any trans youth care, and they did it by reconciliation, which is a fiscal device, and it means that when it goes to the Senate, it doesn't require the filibuster level of 60 votes. It only requires 51, which we know they have in the U.S. Senate.
All right. And, you know, by the way, in the House, somebody standing up for us is Democratic Representative Emily Randall, out representative from Washington State. She has a message for trans visitors to the Capitol who have been told they can't use restrooms.
Hey, it's Congresswoman Emily Randall. There's been a lot of chatter here on the Hill about who's allowed to use the bathrooms and where, which is weird, frankly. But I want to make sure that anyone who comes to visit the People's House has access to the things that they need to be comfortable and to advocate for the issues that matter to them. So if you need to go to the bathroom while you're here in DC, you can use ours.
would be great if every representative on our side did that. I haven't heard about any others.
Well, the resistance is beginning. Lucy Dacus of the singing group Boy Genius has donated $10,000 to gender affirming care for trans youth. That's a good little role model. But meanwhile, in Montana, State Senator John Fuller has put forth a bill that would criminalize care for anyone under 16 and would charge parents with child abuse if they allowed their kids to have care. And
you want to talk about child abuse? I think it's the way a lot of parents treat their gay LGBTQ kids.
Of course, historically. But more and more of them are supportive and are furious that they're being prevented from providing care for their kids. The Department of Justice has dropped charges against a doctor in Texas who outed a hospital for continuing to provide trans care for youth.
He got a pardon.
Yeah. Yes, that's...
For breaking the law.
Exactly.
Well, and then where are we? Well, maybe we should mention, as long as we're talking about that, we might as well mention Elon Musk's making a Nazi salute twice at the January 20th rally for Trump. He's leading backer of the far-right party in Germany. He's just, of course, when the Times talks about this, the far right in Germany, they say it would be the first far right government there since World War II. That was Adolf Hitler. Can't you just say it? Since Adolf Hitler. That's who he's backing.
Well, and
then he made a joke about it, naming all the high command of the Nazis on X.
He puns on their names. But meanwhile, his daughter, Vivian, who is a trans young woman, says, for those of you who are wondering whether that really was a Nazi salute that my father, who won't talk to me, gave, she says, get real. Of course it was. That's who he is and what he does.
And, look, we're not exaggerating about any of this, and this is finally going mainstream. Trump pardoning all the insurrectionists, these violent people. He wants them out in the streets as his shock troops. It's very much a Hitlerian kind of move.
And we are hearing people notice that this is exactly what Project 2025 laid out as the plan, while he lied throughout the entire campaign and said, I don't know them, I don't want to read it, I don't know who they are, that's not me, blah, blah, blah.
It's totally being implemented word for word.
Yes. That people are comparing the texts of the executive orders and Project 2025. It's all right there. We were telling you about it all last year.
And the guy he wants for the budget chief, OMB, right?
Yes.
That guy is totally going to use the power of that office.
He wrote
to make.
He wrote Project 2025.
Right, but he has. You don't think of OMB as having a lot of power, but they have enormous power to make that stuff happen.
And wait a second, I was going to say something
else. As he has unleashed his stormtroopers, he's taken away security details from his political enemies. Everyone from Mike Pompeo and John Bolton, Republicans, to Dr. Anthony Fauci, all of whom are under death threats. Now, private money is now being raised to protect Fauci.
I have no words. But here are some of the things that really, really get under my skin, aside from everything we've already said. I find that we're shouting this week on the show because we're so upset.
It is very upsetting. It is very extremely depressing. We know you are too. We're going to give you some hope. Hang in there.
Well, Jennifer Levi gave us a little hope at the end of the show last week, or her interview. But I've spent a week just sitting here scribbling notes that even I can't read, so I had to rewrite them here. But here are some of the things that really jumped out at me. Trump has told states that they must cooperate with the feds on these deportation raids, even though that is not required by the law. The states are not required to work with the feds, but he says it's like what he did to Colombia. I'm going to punish you immediately if you don't do what I want, even if there's no law that says you have to.
He's spending about $10,000 per deportation.
I think it's more. Rachel Maddow did this thing of how he's using these big military planes, virtually empty, that are costing like $800,000 for every flight to get 80 people out of the country.
That's good PR for him, isn't it?
Well, he thinks so. But the other one is that federal employees must tattle on their colleagues if they notice them doing anything DEI related.
Everything is about DEI. I mean, for instance, let's not skip over it. You know, it was actually the Office of Management and Budget that announced it was pausing $3 trillion in federal agency spending to scrutinize all of it politically and make sure everything they say is it must align with presidential priorities, no matter what the law is. So the use of federal resources to advance, and this is what you're talking about, Marxist equity, transgenderism, and Green New Deal social engineering policies. That's the three things that they're on the lookout for.
Now,
they declare, but what they're really doing
please.
is just dismantling the government.
They're just throwing everything into chaos, because if they were operating normally, they would say, we want to examine everything, we want a full review of everything the government is doing and everybody and everything, which we will do as we go along.
Right.
But no, they want to just stop the government, full stop, for 90 days, and nothing will operate.
Right.
And now they're getting told by courts they can't do that.
But this was one order that was stopped by the federal courts in Washington, D.C., filed by a group of nonprofits, including SAGE, the group, national group for LGBTQ older people. And they got there's going to be more action on that on Monday, but they got a temporary restraining order.
Well, one of the things
that's massive. That's a big victory.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's also temporary. They could lose in the end. But one of the things that got people really upset was that PEPFAR was going to be put on pause. And everybody said, wait a minute, you can't stop supplying AIDS drugs to people around the world, because then they'll all develop drug resistance.
I even heard John Cornyn, the Republican senator from Texas, defending PEPFAR in the hearing about Bobby Kennedy.
It's become a sacred cow. But meanwhile, background checks on new hires have been canceled because we don't want any bad stuff showing up on people we want to hire. We want to ignore that.
Another illegal move, he fired all the EEOC commissioners who've been in...
two commissioners.
12
inspector generals.
Right. I thought it was two EEOC commissioners. But I mean, and one of the biggest things, and it doesn't maybe resonate with a lot of you, but he rescinded a 1965 executive order after the Civil Rights Act passed, requiring federal contracts to take affirmative action to integrate their workforces. This has been the law, this has been practiced since 1965. He has had the Department of Justice stop all civil rights cases, and it ordered the end of course, all DEI programs and put all the DEI staff on leave. It guts the federal workforce, fires, you said, the inspector general, so there'll be no oversight over this.
Right, no oversight over hiring, no oversight over what departments are doing. We're going to do what we want. We're going to, and we're not going to tell you about it, because no more press releases from the federal government to tell you what's going on. That is now illegal. He pardoned a bunch of anti-abortionists who had blocked clinics. He just pardoned them.
That's against the law.
Not in Trump land.
When we start blocking things, we're just going to get shot. So
Stephanie Ruhle on MSNBC has her hair on fire about the fact that the Department of Justice has rescinded job offers to 200 people coming out of law school who are usually hired in a special program because they're trying to keep them good new lawyers away from private practice and make them do public service, not make them, offer them. And the Trump administration just canceled all those job offers.
And of course, there is a new White House press secretary, 27-year-old Caroline Leavitt.
She's a pip.
She's a pip. And all she does is stand there and argue, basically, with them, and doesn't answer questions, of course, and lies. I'll never lie to you. I think she said, I'll never lie to you.
Yeah.
And the supine press corps and I heard somebody on CNN, somebody fairly prominent go, oh, what a performance, wow, she's something.
She's worse than Sean Spicer. And Trump has reinstated what's known as the Mexico City rule, which goes back and forth between Democratic and Republican administrations. No money to overseas non-governmental organizations that perform or promote abortions. So you can't give money to a health clinic in Nairobi if someone there puts up a poster that says, here's where you go for an abortion.
The UNHCR is under threat by all this as well, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees.
And the Department of Education has dismissed all complaints about book bans around the country because parents should be in charge of what's happening with their kids in schools.
Yes, and of course, but I do have good news for the Tennessee Federation of Republican Women, who issued a reading list for children praising Hitler as an intelligent leader. That's good news for them.
Yes, it is. And the State Department, because Trump declared maybe, I don't know if it was his inauguration speech or somewhere else that day, said there are two genders, male and female, and anyone who says differently, off with their heads. So the State Department will no longer offer passports with an X gender marker. You can keep it if you have it now, but when it comes up for renewal,
that's Marco Rubio doing that.
Yeah, and Trump has offered all these buyout offers to federal employees. We want you gone, so we'll pay you some piddling sum, and you can leave the government, and we will bring in all our cronies. And now Senator Tim Kaine is Virginia is getting up on the floor of the Senate and saying, "Don't do it; it's illegal. He's not allowed to do that. Don't listen to him."
Right. And all this, of course, has real-world consequences. There's a new study from the Movement Advancement Project and the Trevor Project that found that 266,000 LGBTQ youth, ages 13 to 24, have relocated to more inclusive, accepting parts of the country. But, of course, these federal policies are trying to make no place safe for LGBTQ youth.
They are just trying to, this is a whitewashing, straight washing, Christian washing of the entire country.
But
they
wait
just
a minute.
want to take a comb and get rid of everybody.
But the Senate did confirm out gay Scott Bessent, 68 to 29, as the Treasury Secretary, and I don't hear him standing up. You know, this guy used to serve on the board of God's Love We Deliver. He gave money to the gay lobby in New York. I don't hear him saying a word.
Now, he says that tariffs are a great idea as blackmail. And Trump has hired Brent Bozell, who was a monster we thought we'd gotten rid of years ago. But he's going to run the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which includes the Voice of America. And
well, they've already got a bad person running the Voice of America.
Well, he's got a long track record of opposing everything GLAAD ever said. And he has a son who was one of the January 6th rioters. And probably not the one who refused the pardon, the gay one.
We'll get to that.
Okay. And you talk about a report. The Williams Institute has put out a quick report on the impact of all of these horrors on the LGBTQ community.
We will link to that in our email. If you want to be on our email list, go to gayusatv.org, sign up for our email. You get these extras. There are going to be a number of them this week. Because we have so much to talk about.
Including a link to last week's show, because here in New York there was a technical problem that made the first showing of the show covered up with something else. So if you didn't see it, you can just go to our website or get the show note.
You can always do that by going to our website. Now, of course, he also, a transit inmate is suing over the anti-trans executive order, representative by gay and lesbian advocates and defenders, GLBTQ legal advocates and defenders. And it's a lawsuit that covers immigration detainees as well.
And this is about, there's a trans woman prisoner who is suing, who's the plaintiff in this case from GLAAD Law and NCLR also, because Trump has said all trans women must be barred from women's prisons.
And are not covered under the Prison Rape Act.
No.
So rape away. I mean, all right. All right.
Sharpton had, I thought, you will scoff at this being a new idea, but he said it at a moment in this last week that I thought was particularly poignant. He was asked on some MSNBC show, why is he doing all this? What is behind all this? And Sharpton said, he was just humiliated by the prosecutions of him, and he is out to kill everyone who came after him.
Well, that's who he is.
Yeah.
Back to the Capitol for a second. Rabid trans hater Nancy Mace, who is also against gender-neutral disabled toilets, by the way. Gender-neutral disabled toilets. She's opposed to that. And Lauren Boebert, of course, the nutcase from Colorado, they confronted a cisgender woman in a restroom and, then they finally realized they were wrong, but they had already called the security detail. Get this man out of here.
Not a man.
Boebert said it won't happen again, but it will happen. It will happen all over this country.
Yes.
Because this has been going on for years.
Yes.
Where certain, people take this into their own hands. There's a man in there. It's a short-haired lesbian or something like that, or whatever, and that's what happens. And it's a mess.
Or a short-haired cisgender woman who Mace went after.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, and the caving into this continues. Darren Walker, out gay man who ran the Ford Foundation for years, is now taking over at the National Gallery of Art. And when told that he had to get DEI stuff out of the National Gallery, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yep. Which is terrible. I mean, this is the thing.
The whole Smithsonian has caved to this.
Yes, and run by a black man also, who's a great guy. But I mean, they're all saying we have to comply. This is why I raise the fascist stuff. If these kinds of people don't stand up and say, no, we're not doing it. We're getting everybody together. We as a group, we are just not doing it. It's not important for me to have this job.
Right.
It is important to say no, because what you're doing is evil. That's how you stop fascism.
Exactly. But they're also concerned with their jobs that they haven't gotten to that point yet, most of them.
And Target stores have dumped DEI to curry favor with the right wing.
Yeah.
A reminder that Costco's board voted unanimously to uphold DEI.
They're holding
and civil
firm.
rights groups are now boycotting Target.
Yes. All right.
And Trump also removed info on how to update your gender markers on the Social Security website, part of a massive purge of LGBTQ
all the websites
content.
were down for a while this week as all these things went out. You couldn't access the Medicaid website or the Social Security website or whatever.
And
it's just a mistake.
3 cheers. Talk about people standing up.
Yep.
3 cheers for Caroline Kennedy for standing up to her cousin,
Breathtaking.
RFK Jr.
Breathtaking.
It was a terrific thing. She couldn't do it while she was, our ambassador to Australia. But she and
Japan.
Yeah.
Both maybe.
It was most recently Australia.
Okay.
I think under Obama it was Japan.
Okay.
So you're right, and I'm right. All right.
And both are right.
Gay insurrectionist
Sullivan.
Jason Riddle,
Yes.
who served time in jail for his role in the insurrection. He stole a bottle of wine and a book of the Senate procedure. He rejected the pardon from Trump. He said he combined alcohol and politics. He served 90 days, got sober. And then he says, Trump, he doesn't care about anybody but himself. It got through to him, and he's rejecting the pardon. And
Thank
he's
you,
clean and
Jason.
sober now.
Very good.
Congratulations.
That's what sobriety will do for you. And what else? The Supreme Court is going to hear an Oklahoma case on the funding of a religious charter school. We're headed in a bad direction.
Well, this isn't just funding, because they're getting funding even in New York, a lot of religious schools. This is total government funding for a Catholic school. They will just be totally funded by the state. Mm-hmm. That's the end of the separation, which is what they want.
And the U.S. House, in its spare time, is trying to back away from investigating Cassidy Hutchinson, who was the great heroic testifier to the January 6th committee, because they've discovered that a lot of House members, Republicans, were sending sexual texts to her in the midst of this testifying she was doing.
That they wanted to screw her?
Yes.
We
haven't seen the text yet, but they're so bad that the House is backing away from its investigation of her.
But they do want to whitewash the whole January 6th thing.
And a footnote to the Musk is a Nazi story. on a more serious note, we like Eric Marcus very much and have had him as a guest here, the author of Making Gay History, great book and continuing podcast.
Check it out online.
He has a new season called The Nazi Era, and he uncovered a lot of material of LGBT survivors of the Nazi era and has interviews with them. And it's going to be a multi-part series, makinggayhistory.org. Go there and listen to the podcast. Fascinating.
And there's also the movie, Paragraph 175,
yes.
a documentary that documented that.
Yes.
We will link to that. Can we go to some state news or
yes.
we got more?
Yes.
Okay, well in Michigan, they have added sexual orientation and gender identity to their hate crimes law.
And disability and age.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed that bill. It takes effect on April 2nd.
She is hot.
Well,
I'd love to see her run for the Senate, but she says she's not going to.
Their senator is not going to run. Peters is not going to run.
And Pete Buttigieg might.
Pete Buttigieg might, and because he's moved to Michigan, and Dana Nessel might, who is the out lesbian attorney general.
And I think Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State there, who's also terrific. All these women running Michigan are terrific.
And I hear
she may run for governor.
I hear the Republicans are in disarray. And I want to remind our Wisconsin viewers, in April, you've got a race for the Supreme Court there, which will decide the balance of the court.
In Naples, Florida, there's a right-wing crazy who's going after Naples Pride as, divisive and bad and crazy, and wants to have it killed. But they had a big city council meeting and decided to keep it, but with restrictions. So the LGBTQ community is not happy about the restrictions, like all drag shows must be indoors, and no one under 18 may attend.
Now, you youngsters may not remember the time when Iowa was a relatively liberal state, but not now. Republican Governor Kim Reynolds plans to remove the civil rights protections for trans Iowans from the human rights law, and her bill to define man and woman based on sex designated at birth has advanced to the House Education Committee there. Though they removed a requirement that trans Iowans include sex assigned at birth on their driver's licenses. I don't know what that's about. But sex change info will be required on birth certificates. Our side is calling it the Trans Erasure Act.
And, Trump screwed up in his thing about that because he said gender's decided at conception, which it is not.
Right.
All embryos read as female for some weeks or months before they differentiate between XX and XY
Will that make
chromosomes.
any difference to the United States Supreme Court?
Well, people are getting a little interested in that.
Okay.
In New York, in Nassau County, a judge has upheld the county's ban on trans women in women's sports there. The roller derby women who were really standing up for trans women had brought suit, but they lost. But the legislature is now believed to be, the state legislature, I think, is going to, or is it the county? They just said the legislature can change it and is expected to take it out.
Okay. On New Year's Eve, a 45-year-old gay man, you might have read about this, Joseph Linsky, was pushed onto the subway tracks at 18th Street in our neighborhood in front of an oncoming train. He managed to get into a shallow well, suffered multiple injuries. He avoided, and he was rescued. It's a miracle.
It is.
He's a music producer, but he's an active member of a club for LGBTQ tennis players and fans. The suspect was arrested. He says he believes he was spared for a reason, and he plans on having a life of service now for the next part of his life. 4
broken ribs, a fractured skull, ruptured spleen, concussion, and psychological trauma.
Yeah. And trans woman Jaya, J-A-I-A Cruz, stabbed a postal worker to death in Harlem this month, but is pleading not guilty, claiming the man, Ray Hodge, berated and spat on her and that she acted in self-defense, though she was reported to say he deserved it. It'll all be sorted out at trial.
Yeah, she says she has mental issues. This was in a deli. He said she cut in front of him. He objected. They got in a fight. There you go.
All right.
And also in New York City, a trial has begun for the 3 people who were arrested for drugging and robbing and killing gay men coming out of gay bars in Hell's Kitchen a couple of years ago.
The police initially wrote these deaths off as drug overdoses, and then their families demanded, and community members demanded, an investigation. And the first witness was drugged by the alleged perps and robbed, but survived. Only 6 members of the New York City Council are Republicans, but their caucus just elected the gay guy, David Carr of Staten Island, as the council minority leader.
I thought they were still fighting over that.
But only half the caucus showed up for the vote, and now the other half are contesting it.
Interesting news from Sundance, where HBO Documentary Films showed a movie called Pee-wee as Himself. This is the Pee Wee Herman movie. And he finally, I guess, comes out as gay in the movie. This was made just before his death. And
at 70 in 2023.
Yeah, talked about how devastated he was by the prosecutions of him for indecent exposure in a movie theater and
a porn shop where that's what most people do. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but I think, it was, I believe it was a straight
but people,
porn.
in some cities, that's where you go if you want to meet people.
But it sort of played against everyone's assumption at the time
that
he was gay.
He was known to have girlfriends, but he had a boyfriend named Guy who died of AIDS.
Yep.
He admits to secret relationships. He hid behind his alter ego. Don't forget, his sister was Abby Rubenfeld, who was the former head of Lambda and is a big out lesbian civil rights lawyer.
Exactly.
So he doesn't seem to have been too inspired by her.
Anyway, watch for that film. That should be coming.
All right. And we lost Joel Paley, the writer of the kind of fun musical Ruthless off-Broadway. He died at 69. That's him on the right, with his partner, Marvin Laird, who died just like 6 weeks ago. Joel was also a member of the Le Ballet Trocadero.
Yes. And Ruthless was based on the old Patty McCormick movie, The Bad Seed, but the rights were owned by, what's his name, who wouldn't sell them. So he had to elaborate and go into all sorts of tangents to take it far away enough from The Bad Seed to be producible.
No, he collapsed while driving, so off he went.
Oh, and the understudies in the Broadway show, what's her name? Belle was the star. Understudies, Britney Spears and, oh no, I've forgotten the other one.
All right. Can we go to international news?
We can.
Well, again, we can start with some good news. Thailand kicked off the commencement of legalized same-sex marriages with a mass wedding at a luxury retail mall in Bangkok, where there were 200 couples were wed. The Prime Minister of Thailand, Paetongtarn Shinawat, welcomed LGBTQ couples and activists afterwards at government offices. She said, "This demonstrates that Thailand is ready to embrace diversity and accept love in all its forms." A far cry from the messages coming out of Washington these days.
Should we go to the videotape?
Oh, please, it's fun.
In a region where most nations continue to oppose gay rights, this is groundbreaking. Porsche and Arm have waited 17 years for this day. Finally, in Thailand, they can marry. What does this day mean to you?
Personally, I think it marks the beginning of equality in Thailand, and it also, in a way, inspired people to see that love is normal. Every love is the same.
Same-sex couples celebrating for the first time today will now have the same rights as heterosexual couples. Something campaigners have fought over a decade for. At least 200 have registered to marry at this shopping mall in Bangkok. For Porsche and Arm, it is a monumental moment and milestone. How significant does this feel?
What I feel now is the closeness between people and family. I can feel the bond between love, different kinds of love, like family love, friends love, and brothers, and even lovers. Whoever you are, love is just love. Love.
Thailand has long been seen as a relative haven for LGBT people in Asia, but it remains a conservative Buddhist society with a largely patriarchal family structure, and tolerance doesn't always translate to full acceptance. How do you think it will change Thailand?
We need more and more, what should I say, acceptance from people who may believe something for their whole life, that this love must be this way and this way, that way. Give them some time, and then I truly believe that finally Thailand will change.
But Thailand has taken a critical step. Many close by refuse to, and it's already changing lives.
So they're not stopping there. Activists are now pushing for the rights of trans people to legally change their gender identities.
And the Thai government announced, as marriage became legal, that they will now help finance trans health care.
Yep.
They're going to
They're
get
making
into the
hormone therapy free.
Yep.
Free. That didn't seem to come up at the hearing for RFK Jr. or how to, make medical care really more accessible.
And those 200 couples were married at the mall, but a total of 1,832 couples registered their marriages on the first day of legal marriage. Well, there was a
build-up there because we'd never been able to do it.
Right, but the floodgates are open now.
Yes. In Russia, officials are working on creating an electronic registry for monitoring LGBTQ individuals, a database that'll make blackmailing and persecuting us vastly easier.
And the Justice Ministry there has filed suit to dissolve the Transgender Foundation, which has been in business since 2007.
And what happened? Do we make any progress in Davos?
Well, Sarah Kate Ellis of GLAAD was in Davos again, but here's who else was in Davos. The president of Argentina, who called all LGBTQ people pedophiles, child abusers, said it's a mental virus of woke ideology. Wow. It's a cancer we must get rid of.
Wow.
And that's all LGBTQ people. That's not just trans or anything.
Sarah Kate took aim at Elon Musk, warning that his consolidation of power is fueling attacks on LGBTQ people and other marginalized groups. You think?
A congressman in Argentina has filed a complaint against the president for his statement and his lies, and there's going to be a big pro-LGBTQ march in Buenos Aires this Saturday, February 1st. If you are seeing us in Buenos Aires, you probably already know about it.
So I did go to London a week and a half ago, and it was to see my comrade, Reverend Dr. Bernard Lynch, an out gay Catholic priest and activist, receive something called the Freedom of the City of London, an honor that goes, there he is, with the Beadle and with the Chamberlain, goes back to Magna Carta for lifetimes of public service. In recent years, it's been bestowed on leaders from Churchill to Mandela and artists like Ian McKellen, Judi Dench. Bernard was cited for his groundbreaking AIDS ministry in New York in the 80s, really, and London in the 90s, as well as his gay activism. And as an out gay priest, there he is with his husband, Billy Desmond.
Love Billy's suit.
Yep. Here's the thing about Bernard. He paid a high price for this. And
he was an out gay priest in the Bronx, right?
Yes.
Way back then, and the Catholic 80s. Church came after him.
Yes, they trumped up molestation charges against him that were thrown out of court, but that was to persecute him. But here he was, celebrated at the Guildhall, surrounded by family and friends. The Irish ambassador to the United Kingdom, Martin Fraser, joined the reception and read a letter of congratulations from Irish President Michael D. Higgins. So it's a great vindication for Bernard, who has lived in London since the early 90s and never quite felt accepted by the English,
Well, that's another story.
But he is now a free man of the city.
And you sat next to the Irish ambassador.
I did, had a good talk with him. He's a good, he's not a member of a political party, but, he was a great guy. And he gave me a ride home to my hotel. With his wife, there was nothing else, untoward going on.
A footnote to Trump in international news. You've seen this thing about he's telling Jordan and Egypt to take all the Palestinians and clean out Gaza.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. He and his son-in-law have a scheme to build a new resort in Gaza.
Jared talked about that a year ago.
They have great waterfront property. The climate is beautiful. They've wasted this land.
On dirty Palestinians. And of course, I use that in quotes because this is the way they treat these people. They don't even treat them as people.
But it's important to know always what Trump's motivations are. And they're always about money. And they're always about his personal wealth. And he wants to clean out Gaza so he can build a Trump resort.
And this crypto
Trump International in Gaza.
And this crypto thing that he's invested in now, could sink the entire economy. Anyway.
I don't know whether we've talked about the new president of Ghana who has announced that the anti-LGBTQ bill passed by the parliament had not been certified by the old president. Right. So he, taking office, says that bill is dead, and we're going to move on from that. Now, it was he's known as a pretty progressive guy, and it was his inauguration that Mayor Karen Bass of L.A. was attending when the fires were breaking out. So that's why she was there. This was not some random trip.
No.
This was to...
Well, she has a long relationship with Ghana.
Yes, and this guy in particular is a good guy, but the coincidence of timing was not good.
Health news. Trump has scrapped Biden orders lowering the price of drugs for Medicare and Medicaid recipients, including a whole collection of $2 generic drugs. So the next time you go to the pharmacy and you're paying more, thank you, President Trump. And the House...
I just want to go back and one more international story that sort of segues into health news. There's a trial going on because a transphobic nurse in Scotland is suing a trans woman doctor for being trans and for complaining that the nurse was mean to her and harassing her. Yeah. The judge rules that the nurse can continue misgendering the doctor during the trial as long as she doesn't go too far.
So we get a note from a viewer who says, I was treated by this nurse and she's a total transphobe.
Yes.
And hateful.
Because the viewer is trans and says the nurse came in where she was at one point in the hospital, noticed her, grabbed her bed, flung it into an empty room, and basically locked her in there for the rest of her stay in the hospital.
And the viewer has her suspicions about the nurse.
Well, we always say things like that.
Okay. And the House and Senate GOP are looking to cut programs aiding the poor, to finance more massive tax cuts for the rich. They'll repeal subsidies for those on the ACA, cap Medicaid spending, impose work requirements on Medicaid recipients, increase the burden on the states. They're even taxing scholarship money. So it's all burn, baby, burn. Maybe even end the home mortgage deduction. All the while lowering the corporate tax rate. So that's what they voted for.
All right. Should we go to entertainment news?
Yeah.
We have more than 3 minutes.
Okay.
I predicted it would be less.
Emilia Perez leads in the Oscar nominations with 13, the most ever for a foreign film. It did not, however, get nominations from the GLAAD Media Awards, apparently put off by some trans reviewers who said that it played into anti-trans stereotypes. A transgender drug lord who also becomes a humanitarian. That's not a stereotype
in a musical
with which I'm familiar.
Well, they're complaining that
she's a criminal. But come on.
Yes. Look, you know that we love the movie.
Yes.
We had a great time. We thought it was very original, very entertaining. I recommended it to some old friends yesterday. But it is controversial in some circles. The Academy has obviously not let that stop them. I'm amazed because it is such an original, unique movie that I'm surprised it wound up with the most nominations, even though I really admire it and hope it wins. But there is this controversy, but I think it's very, they don't like the fact that it was shot in Mexico with only like one Mexican in it.
With a French director.
Lighten up.
All right. So its star, Carla Sofia Gascon, was nominated for Best Actress, making history as the first trans person ever nominated for an acting Oscar. That's great.
It is great. And Zoe Saldana got the nomination for supporting actress. She also was terrific.
And she's kind of favored for that.
Yeah. And then it was nominated for Best Movie. It was nominated for Best International Movie.
Which it will win.
I should hope so. Best Director, Best Screenplay, I think adapted, I can't remember, one of the original or adapted. Best Music, 2 songs from the movie were nominated, and they're great songs.
And one of the songs is favored.
And Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, and Best Sound.
But
13.
there are other movies. Also in the Best Actress category is Out by Cynthia Erivo, star of Wicked as Elphaba, right? Who will grow up to be Elphaba, who will grow up to be the Wicked Witch of the West. The co-star Ariana Grande was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, and the author of the story Wicked acknowledges that there is at least a lesbian subtext to their relationship.
Yeah, and I keep trying to remember whether Ariana Grande has talked about any potential openness to bisexuality. I think she may have hinted at that. She's nominated for supporting actress. Cynthia Erivo, by the way, has been connected to Lena Waithe as a partner. I'm not sure if that's correct.
Wow, that would be a power couple.
Certainly would.
And outgay Coleman Domingo is nominated for Best Actor for Sing Sing, about a theater troupe of inmates at the famous prison.
And that's his second Best Actor nomination in a row.
Right.
Equally, well, I don't know others, but...
Color Purple?
No.
It'll come to us.
Yes, it will.
And Sebastian Stan got a Best Actor nod for playing Trump in The Apprentice, the movie about the young Donald that includes him raping his first wife, Ivana. Jeremy Strong got a supporting nod for playing Trump's mentor, the vicious closet case, Roy Cohn, who would go on to die of AIDS. So I'm glad that's getting attention. I'm sure it's infuriating Trump, who has sent Mel Gibson as an emissary to Los Angeles to get them to get in line.
He nominated several emissaries without telling them. And why does he have emissaries to Hollywood? Elton John has also been nominated for his documentary Never Too Late for Best Song. And there are some sort of gayish movies that have also been nominated. Wicked, as you say, Anora, of course, which I'm still dying to see, and Conclave, which certainly has a lot of homoeroticism. Not getting nominated, Daniel Craig for Queer.
I finally saw it.
And?
I was pretty bored. I mean, apparently, though, it's known for its cinematography, but I was watching it with the Sage Group online on a little screen, so that doesn't have the same effect. But it's hard to root for
I'm not eager to see it.
It's hard to root for anybody in that thing. Some of you I know loved it. Go ahead.
Jonathan Bailey did not get nominated for Wicked.
Yeah.
Will and Harper, the documentary, did not get nominated, which I thought was too bad because I really liked that.
It was on the short list.
Yeah, but you can watch that online.
On
That's
the long
very
list, I
charming.
should say.
Yeah. And Challengers. A lot of people are upset that Challengers.
I saw that too on the plane. I saw that on the plane.
Yeah, didn't like it.
It's lively, and it's kind of sexy, but it's
not
like
really.
It's not. It's kind of dumb.
Boo, Challengers.
All right. After Forever, the award-winning web series about a gay widower, Kevin Spirtus, there you can see him, and his late partner, played by Mitchell Anderson, is now streaming on Amazon Prime. Season 1, by the way, is on YouTube, and it's free, as is Season 2, so catch up on this very heartfelt show. It's got a great cast, and it unspools in episodes that are under 15 minutes. It's really sweet.
The Traitors episodes are longer, but it's still very gay, and Alan Cumming is still very entertaining, and that plays on Peacock on Thursday nights, but you can catch all the episodes so far. And Amber Glenn, who won the U.S. National Figure Skating Championships last year, the women's, as an out pansexual skater. Certainly many of the men have been gay over the years in figure skating, but women not so much out anyway. So she has now won for the second year in a row. So congratulations to her.
That's great. February is Black History Month. Are we still allowed to celebrate that in this country?
Well, someone raised that question the other day. Maybe Sharpton again. Are we still allowed to celebrate Black History Month?
But
no DEI.
We're going to include in our email an article from something called Native Son about 8 Black LGBTQ documentaries that you can stream online, and they include Tongues Untied, Paris is Burning, Kiki, Check It, Mama Gloria, All Boys Aren't Blue, Kokomo City, The Life and Death of Marsha P. Johnson, and Brother Outsider, The Life of Bayard Rustin.
Kokomo City, in particular, really, really, really good.
Okay, and Midnight Cowboy is being turned into a musical.
Oh, no.
In London at the Southwark Playhouse in April. It's based on a book by James Leo Herlihy that was turned into, of course, the 1969 movie directed by out gay John Schlesinger, starring Dustin Hoffman and that right-winger John Voight. EastEnders star Max Bowden will play Joe Buck, and Paul Jacob French will be Ratso Rizzo.
And who's playing Sylvia Miles?
Oh, I didn't write her name down. I apologize.
Wow.
Sylvia Miles got an Academy Award nomination, at least for that.
Yeah, I think so. Man, that just seems impossible. How can they do?
I know. I always get.
Why? Just show the movie. Show the movie in the Broadway theater.
Although, the movie, ultimately the movie, it's kind of a homophobic thing. The gay bashing in it and all that kind of stuff.
Well, look.
At the time, it was seen as like a breakthrough.
Yes, for those of us coming to acknowledgement of ourselves, it was an image.
Yes.
And as you know, I'm still mad at Lillian Hellman for the Children's Hour, putting bad images in my head. But we have to see the spectrum, for God's sake.
Be careful what you say about Lillian Hellman. You might get sued.
No, I think I'm safe from that.
Yeah, she's dead.
All right. Well,
we managed to survive this week and get through this show. It's painful to distill all this stuff and to pay attention to all this stuff. And I know that there's a desire to hide under the covers.
I don't do that. Please don't do that. That really upsets me more than anything. The people who say, I can't watch, I'm not going to pay attention. Now, the best, I thought, advice came in the last 24 hours from someone who was saying, look, the Democrats are taking a very good rope-a-dope attitude. We're waiting and watching. We're watching them self-destruct.
Yes.
We're not going to jump in too fast. We're going to stand up, but we're going to play it right, and I thought that was decent advice.
Well, it's going to take taking back political power, which is hard, and it does require organizing and listening to each other and forging a new vision. Of course, there's some people who want it to be more conservative, and some people want it to be a lot more progressive.
Everyone thinks, 2 years, we'll take the midterms, but don't count on it.
Well, 2 years is too long a time.
Goodbye. We'll see you for more next week.